Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I know you've had a very, very long day, but I think I'm only here to do a very simple job to explain how the Ministry of Transport has actually benefited from this new initiative of government with regards to the public-private partnership policy with the Ministry of Finance. So this afternoon, I have a very simple topic. It is the public-private partnership experience and vision for Ghana's transport sector. I would like first to look basically at the background of this country, but I think that won't be necessary, as I'm sure that we're all here and know that Ghana is a coastal state. The state of transport infrastructure in Ghana, our challenges presently, the PPP framework as policy option for infrastructure financing, types of PPP options for the sector, PPP projects in the pipeline for now, as well as our conclusions. And hopefully you'd find a way of investing in some of these heavily cash-intensive projects of ours. As I indicated earlier, this is sub-Saharan Africa, and Ghana is a coastal nation. So what the Ministry of Transport has is actually oversight responsibility for all of the transport MDs. We look out for the maritime, the railway, as well as the other sectors. Presently, I would like to look at the significance of infrastructure to our economic growth. We will all agree that infrastructure is actually a key to propelling this economy to the next level. That what we indicate or expect to achieve is a modally complementary system of transport, one that will contribute to national development, contribute to growth, as well as do away with the long congestion and queues that we're currently experiencing in this country. I would like furthermore to see an improved railway infrastructure, which will also support the export of our mineral ore, such as bauxite and manganese, from the Western region, and also from the ports of Ghana to other parts of Africa and the world at large. We cannot overestimate or overemphasize the contribution of transportation to the development of this country. We must ensure that we have a well-developed supply and logistics chain, and this can only be achieved through investing in the transport sector. We have two sectors involved actually in the transport sector. We have the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Roads and Highways. We have oversight responsibility for all modes of transport, and of course, the Ministry of Roads and Highways actually works on developing our road infrastructure. The railway subsector is currently one of our biggest challenges, considering the level of investment that is required and how much money is needed to revamp this all-important sector of the Ministry of Transport. We currently have two institutions in the railway sector, namely the Ghana Railway Development Authority and the Ghana Railway Company Limited. The Railway Development Authority was actually decoupled from the Ghana Railway Company. The idea was to have one as a regulator and the other as the operator. But of course, some people will ask you, what are they regulating and what are they operating? Because we all know that the railway sector presently is in a very chaotic state of total disarray. We are hoping that after this meeting, we will generate some investor interest, and that as part of the PPP policies, we'll be able to revamp that ailing sector. It is sad to state that out of 937 kilometers of railway tracks in this country, only 133.3 kilometers is currently being used. This should tell us the dire state in which this particular sector is presently. But we also know that the reasons why the railways are currently suffering is because we require huge sums of money. And of course, providing railway transport has always been a subsidized transportation by governments. But also remember that railways are actually one of the most efficient and safest ways of transporting passengers as well as cargo from one place to the other. We all know what developed countries have achieved from depending on the railway sector. If Ghana had maintained the railways that were bequeathed to us by the then first president of this country, Kwame Nkrumah, I'm sure that we would have built on it, and that today all the roads that are being challenged and destroyed day in, day out by all these heavy loads of trucks would have been a thing of the past. I believe that this week we heard about the Mine Workers Union threatening governments to actually revamp the railway sector because all the roads leading to the mining areas were actually totally obsolete. I believe that as part of this project, that you would endeavor to find a way of helping us invest in this all-important sector of our transport system. I have a little map here of the existing railway network. We have the central line, we have the eastern line, as well as the western railway line. I'm sure most of you have seen the tracks, but of course, all of the steel and what have you have all been taken off and sold as scrap. So yes, we do have an existing railway line, an existing railway sector, but as far as its impact on the economy is concerned, it is next to naught. The Western Railway Line actually extends from Sekondi Takoradi in the Western region to Kumasi in the Ashanti region, with a branch line from Dunkwa to Awaso. It is also the mainstay of the rail network presently in Ghana. Remember that all the mineral deposits we have are in that part of this country. Now the nascent oil industry has started, and yes, we're going to have the same challenges because basically we do not have the requisite railway infrastructure in place to be able to transport our bauxite, our gold, and all of that. So what we have is the tracks continuing to use the roads. And what it means then is that the roads do not last. And of course, government is normally or always cash-strapped with competing interests for the little that is in the kitty. It makes funding of railway infrastructure very, very difficult. What we have actually realized is that without the commensurate public-private partnerships, facilitating the modernization of the railway sector would be just a dream that might never come true. We actually realized early on that to reduce congestion within the port of Tema and Takoradi and to create a third port, mostly a dry port in Ghana, we would require the commensurate railway line. What we've therefore done is to package the Eastern Railway Line together with the Buankra Inland Port projects. This Eastern Railway Line will take us from Accra, Tema in the Greater Accra region to Kumasi in the Ashanti region. We have realized that the viability of the Buankra Inland project will not be realized without the railway. What this means is that we require some serious funding because construction of a railway line from Tema to Kumasi is no mean achievement. It would involve roughly about $470 million. We are hoping that very soon, with the help of PricewaterhouseCoopers, who have recently been engaged as our transaction advisors in this endeavor, we will soon be able to find a strategic investor to partner government and the Ministry of Transport to execute and implement this project. We believe that with the inception of the Buankra Inland Port, what it means is that the port congestion will be reduced, cargo will be carried from Accra to Kumasi to serve the other parts of this country. Remember that we have several landlocked countries also, such as Niger and Burkina Faso, that an inland port would therefore be able to facilitate additional trade between our countries and our surrounding neighbors. So we are deciding to link the Eastern and Western railway lines respectively, as well as provide a link to communities along the other areas for access to the Greater Accra as well as the Western region. As I indicated earlier, the railway sector is actually fraught with several challenges, not to say the least the legal challenges that they are currently being faced with. But of course, with the current state in which the tracks are, we know that a lot more is required than what we currently have available to us. Funding actually remains a key challenge. And so we are hoping that as a result of this conference, we'll find some additional funding options. Remember that rehabilitation of the Western Railway Line alone will cost us nothing less than $1.2 billion United States dollars. That of the suburban railway lines, that is the ones from Accra, Nsawam, Takoradi, Kojokrom, and Sekondi, are in similar lines, about $120 million for Accra to Nsawam, $165 million from Takoradi, Kojokrom, Sekondi, and of course from Kumasi to Ejisu, we are looking at about $100 million odd United States dollars. Government will definitely not be able to afford all of that, as well as the locomotives that are required to improve upon our operations. We also know that due to this very challenge of ours with regards to the railway, the roads are actually in a very, very deplorable state. We are also unable to explore to the best of our ability our bauxite and iron ores within that encatchment area. As a result, we have several accidents to grapple with, and of course, with the recurrent damage to our roads and even higher cost of road maintenance this side of Ghana. In the short to medium term, we're hoping that we can find strategic investors to partner the Ministry of Transport on behalf of the Republic of Ghana to modernize and facilitate a total revamping of the railway sector for our common good. In the short to medium term, we're looking at all the other options that have already been clearly stated, packaging the development of the Eastern Railway line as well as the Buankra Inland Port project on a build, operate, transfer basis, which I believe has been explained as one of the options for funding available under the public-private partnership arrangement. We have actually completed some feasibility studies into the tram services and hoping that very soon we'll be able to find some strategic person to invest in that endeavor. We have looked at several options, and these are the expansion works that we envisage to the railway infrastructure in this country. So I'm hoping that you will all aid this ministry to try and revamp the railway sector so that all the threats that we experience day in, day out about road infrastructure, about railway workers going on strike and what have you will be things of the past. Remember that investing in infrastructure cannot be the sole responsibility of government, but that the private sector, as an able partner, will be able to add its own quota to this particular endeavor. As I indicated earlier, the Ministry of Transport also has oversight responsibility for aviation in this country. Kotoka being our flagship airport, we all know that is actually presently overstretched and that passenger throughput is at an all-time high for both international as well as domestic passengers. We are hoping to expand our facilities in that regard. We presently have regional airports in Tamale, in Kumasi, in Sunyani, and of course, the Takoradi, which is actually a military base. And currently, land is being sourced outside of that particular area to try and build a new airport to serve Takoradi, especially in the light of the oil discovery in that part of the country. We have looked at all the other options available to try and improve upon our air facilities and, of course, to improve upon tourism in this country. We have also decided, as a short-term project, to expand the Tamale Airport and upgrade it to an international airport. The work is currently ongoing, and it is a grant from the Brazilian government. We are hoping that very soon the congestion, even at the Kotoka International Airport, would likewise be reduced or at least be managed considerably. We are currently operating 18 international scheduled flights in this country. 10 are regional airlines, 8 are cargo airlines, and 5 are mainly domestic. Out of all of these, they are all still in operation. What we haven't done is to improve and develop upon our infrastructure to meet the rising growth in passengers and carriers. It is as a result of this that phase 3 of the rehabilitation project is currently ongoing. We are looking at remodeling the expansion of the KIA terminal building, the present terminal building, and hoping that very soon additional aero bridges will be installed at a cost of about US $224 million. Remember that the Ghana Airport Company is actually one of the companies that currently has a good balance sheet, and that on their own they can enter into a public-private partnership arrangement with any strategic investor willing to invest in the aviation sector. Remember that returns are likewise very good in that regard, and that concessions can be from 10, 15, 20 years. And in that time, I'm sure that whoever invests in these projects will be able to recover their investment. We are trying to develop our landside facilities too. What we have in modern times are all these aerotropolises around the system. We're hoping that if we can do likewise here in Ghana, we'll be able to achieve the requisite business to attract investment to be able to pay for all the expansion works currently being undertaken. We are also looking at rehabilitating our existing airstrips and regional airports, including the upgrade of the Tamale Airport as an alternative to the Kotoka International Airport. We are also looking at hoping that we can actually work on Sunyani, which is still relatively very small. Business is actually booming presently with a few domestic airlines actually plying that route. So we are hopeful that soon we'll be able to develop and upgrade that facility, at least to be able to do more of the domestic movement than is currently being done. In terms of developing, we are also looking at the cargo handling facilities within the environs of the airports, both in Tamale, in Kumasi, and others. We are also looking at developing additional facilities within the KIA area. So these are all opportunities that public-private partnerships can invest in and that government is willing to allow private sector participation so that we can create jobs and create even more opportunities for business to thrive in this country. This is what all the developments in the airports are actually supposed to do and to achieve, and we are hoping that very soon Ho as well as Cape Coast will actually also get some sort of regional airports, maybe not on the levels of Tamale and Kumasi, but at least something that can be used regularly and gradually improve upon business in that area. The Upper West region is actually one of the airports that has come and attracted a lot of interest presently. So the Ghana Airport Company is actually working closely to try and bring up some proposals so that that particular airstrip can be improved and upgraded for more domestic participation. With respect to the maritime, I think that is the area that has seen most growth in terms of public-private partnerships. We have the Ghana Maritime Authority, we have the Ghana Shippers Authority, we have the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, Volta Lake Transport, the Tema Shipyard Company Limited, the Regional Maritime University. These are all bodies that operate within the maritime transport sector. We have the ports of Tema and the port of Takoradi. We also have 2 fishing harbors at both Tema and Sekondi. We are hoping that soon an additional 11 landing sites will be constructed along the coastal parts of this country, all in a bid to improve upon our maritime business in this country. The dry dock at Tema is also one of the projects that is currently being uplifted and developed. We also have a dry dock and slipway in Tema and in Takoradi. As I indicated earlier, government is fraught to several challenges, not just funding challenges, but of course, even our current port structure is such that it's very difficult to expand the facilities as we envisaged. Remember that the whole of Community 2 in particular was actually part of the land designated for port expansion works in Tema. Unfortunately, most of those lands have been completely encroached. And so what we're doing now is additional reclamation from the sea to try and expand our port facilities in Tema. We are looking at deepening the depth from 11.15 meters to at least about 16. Remember that with the nascent oil industry, huge vessels are calling within the ports of Tema and Takoradi. What we are seeking to achieve is to be able to catch as much business as is possible this side of sub-Saharan Africa. Remember that Togo, Ivory Coast are all developing their ports and expanding rapidly. If Ghana falls short of this expansion, soon cargo throughput will fall considerably. What we want to do is to achieve additional exports. This, I'm sure, will help reduce our stress on the foreign currencies, which are currently actually pushing the cedi to the level that we all probably do not like and admit is not good enough. So first and foremost, we believe that one of the ways in which we can ameliorate this sliding of the cedi is to ensure that our ports are ready to receive and to carry business out of Ghana. We want to look at a situation where it will be the first point of call. Tema, for example, has seen a lot of expansion in recent times. We are looking at dredging the basin and an access channel, as I indicated, of about 16 meters draft, new container terminals outside of the port catchment area so that we can create space and reduce congestion. We are looking at a new passenger terminal because currently tourism is one of the main ways in which we can shore up our foreign deposits. And if we develop a passenger terminal, I'm sure it will go a long way to actually encourage more tourism in that sector. We want to look at an additional food and fruit terminal so that we can export all the farm products directly from the port of Tema and Takoradi. We have also decided that a new Ro-Ro terminal will be important. That way, cargo throughput can move faster than is currently being done. We want additional transshipment terminals so that what we have is a situation where instead of staying within the port, vessels will come and turnaround time is reduced. This will make our port more efficient and make it run even better than it's doing now. So yes, a lot of expansion is being seen there in Tema. What we want to look at is that the port of Tema alone requires about $720 million US. This has been tried and tested, that returns are good. Meridian Port Services came in somewhere in about 2004, 2005. They were given a concession of 10 years. As far as I know, and I'm reliably informed, they have long recovered their investment and are planning on even expanding their business services within the port of Tema. So you are encouraged to find us investments in terms of the public-private partnerships that we are currently enjoying within the port of Tema. We're looking at expanding Takoradi as well, and I think work is currently ongoing. Similar dredging and extension of breakwater will be achieved. We are also building a dry bulk handling jetty so that we can actually continue with our manganese and bauxite and clinker. Remember that GASEM has huge business interests in that catchment area. We are looking at improving upon the access routes so that once this is done, a bridge will be constructed to ensure that goods move faster than is currently being done. We are looking at improving upon utility services in terms of upgrading of electrical power, water, and security services. The port signal tower and all of those other facilities required for an international hub, such as we envisage, would all be put in place. And this is currently being done. We are actually in phase 1. Hopefully, phase 2 would commence soon. We're looking at developing some fish landing sites along the coastal areas in the country. We're looking at a total of about 11 landing sites to be constructed soon, specifically in Axim, Discov, Winneba, Senya, Breku, Gomoafete, Jamestown, and what have you. It will also involve about 230 million United States dollars. This is a very good business, and hopefully we can improve upon the lives of our fisher folk. As I indicated earlier, the Boankra port is one of our key strategic projects presently. We are looking at a fee of about 250 million United States dollars. Presently, we have an administrative block on the site. We have installed utility services such as water, electricity, and communication equipment. And of course, we are hoping that we can find a strategic investor to develop the dry port so that we can reduce congestion at the ports of Takoradi and Tema. The upgrading and modernization of the Tema shipyard is currently ongoing. Remember that this was a shipyard that was the envy of all in West Africa. In fact, in Africa, there were only 2 shipyards, one in South Africa and one here in Ghana. The shipyard has gone through several trends and is still where it started off. We need to improve upon the infrastructure. We need to invest heavily to bring it back to its former days of glory. So we are hoping that soon we will be able to find a strategic investor. And for that project too, we do have a transaction advisor who has been engaged to advise government as well as find us a strategic investor so that we do not go wrong as we've done in times past. It is there for all to visit and see, and I'm sure the management will be happy to host you so that at least you can sell this very, very important and strategic project to whoever is willing to invest in it. The Eastern Corridor Multimodal Project is another project that is under the Ministry of Transport. We are looking at the Volta Lake Transport Company being the lead agency handling this development. Remember that we will have to be going from the southern part of the country all the way to the northern sector. It will therefore require a lot of money in the regions of about 470 million, which in my professional estimation is probably something of a conservative estimate, because you are looking at Akosombo all the way to Bipe and of course to Yapi. We are looking at developing 18 ferry landing sites, and I think 2 are currently ongoing. We are also upgrading 7 of the existing vessels, and procurement of 8 new vessels and equipment is currently underway. We are hoping to promote a local boat building industry so that we can actually create jobs for our people. We are also looking at upgrading of the 700-kilometer feeder road leading to selected ferry stations on the Volta Lake. It is actually one of the natural gifts that God has given us, which can actually improve upon the lot of several Ghanaians, and I'm hoping that in our lifetimes this will be achieved. As a policy, several frameworks such as legal and commercial have been put in place. We have several professionals, so that is not in doubt. What we are hoping to do is that the public-private partnerships will become the preferred option or vehicle by which governments would find investment for all of these projects. Remember that most often than not, once people know that companies belong to government, they forget that they should be making a profit. It has happened to several of our state-owned enterprises. Even trying to revamp some of them has become a challenge because now the workers have rights and probably have a right of entitlement to these companies. So each time government has tried to change management, you will come under serious attack. And each time there's a facility or a law or a lawsuit against these companies, you find that they come running back to government to help them to stay execution and what have you. So yes, we believe that restructuring these companies as part of the public-private partnership would be a best way to go for now. What happens is that with these sort of arrangements, there's better transparency, that we have legal frameworks that will ensure that people respect the tenets of the agreement. So we are looking forward to a logical, viable, and preferred policy option. And I'm actually glad that the department has mentioned that very soon the legislation will be laid before Parliament, and that very soon we'll have a law which will guide all of these partnership arrangements within the system. Government is actually committed to this policy, and I think the Ministry of Transport has actually led by example. And I'm actually hoping that several other infrastructure companies would actually emulate this example of ours. Because if infrastructure development is heavily cash intensive, it makes it very difficult for government to invest in all of them. Even when it comes to some of these subsidized processes that we have, I believe that there's still a better way that the private sector can handle them better than government has done so far. So yes, the PPPs are indeed the way to go. We're looking at several types of options, and as I mentioned earlier, Boankra is actually being implemented on a public build, operate, transfer policy. We hope that others will come as a buy, build, and operate, design, build, and operate, lease, develop, and operate, and what have you. These are all options that are available, and I'm hoping that the private sector will take advantage. With regards to the railways, we're looking at reconstruction of the Western Railway line from Takoradi to Kumasi, with a branch line from Dunkwa to Awaso to support the haulage of bauxite, manganese, cocoa, timber, and other products. We are looking at reconstruction of the Eastern Railway line from Accra to Kumasi, as well as the Central Railway line from Huni Valley to Kotoko. Development of suburban rail services, including Accra and Sewam, Takoradi, Sekondi, Kumasi, and Ejiso, are all in the pipeline. We are also looking at expansion of the rail network from Tema to Okosombo to integrate the Volta Lake in providing multimodal transport services to the northern part of Ghana. In the case of the ports, we have looked at the expansion in both the ports of Takoradi and Tema to at least shore up the oil and gas industry. We are looking at expanding as well as deepening our current berths at both ports. We are looking at the improvement of extra facilities at the fishing harbors, both in Sekondi as well as including cold store facilities. This will ensure that our fisher folk are able to store their products until they are ready for export. We are developing the Boankra Inland Port near Kumasi for just this purpose. We are looking at upgrade and modernization of the Tema shipyard and hoping that soon our transaction advisors will find us a strategic investor to partner us, and of course, improving upon the facilities of the Volta Lake transport. I think we've said enough about aviation, the remodeling and modernization of the current terminal building, and as I said earlier, the aviation sector is actually one of our most viable, second only to the Ports Authority in Ghana. So yes, they have a good balance sheet and they can borrow to fund all of their projects. I'm sure that most often than not, investors are interested in viable companies that have their own funding and that they don't have to depend on government. Remember, government no longer has government sovereign guarantees to give. So that means that companies with good balance sheets are better off borrowing to fund their huge infrastructure projects. We have several potential transport sector projects requiring financing under public-private options. In the case of the road transport services, we are looking at acquisition of large capacity buses for intercity and intracity passenger services. We are also looking at developing the Eastern and the Boankra Inland Port in Kumasi. We are looking at the work that will be taking place in the establishment of our new airline. We are hoping that we can revive the national carrier, because presently Ghana has become an aviation hub, and it will be safer to have our own airline, and hope that this time around, with the participation of the private sector, this project will survive and be sustained through the years. We are also looking at another one, which is the Tema shipyard. I believe I've said enough about that, and hoping that we can find a strategic investor soon to engage and partner government to undertake and implement this project. We are looking at the development of the Takoradi logistics platform. It is actually being done presently as a public-private partnership, which was initiated by the Ghana Shippers Authority about 4 years ago. It is near completion, and hopefully it will soon be on stream. What we wanted to do was to provide services for the oil and gas industry, and I believe that it will soon be up and running, and it is indeed an example of our commitment to the public-private partnership arrangements. We have mentioned Meridian Port Services already, and that the objective at the time was to improve port handling and management services. So far, this has been a very good success story and is currently ongoing. What we want to do is for government to ensure that we put in place strategies for sustaining these PPPs. And the only way to do this is that we have asked the Ministry of Finance to provide the leadership that is required to ensure that the projects are couched properly, that the investment is a long-lasting one, that the technical, the legal, and all the frameworks required are put in place to ensure sustenance of the projects and programs. We also want to ensure that good governance and accountability is ensured. The legal and regulatory framework is actually critical to Ghana being an investment destination. We want to ensure that when we have disputes, that resolving them becomes not a challenge, but that Ghana will be seen as a destination of choice for arbitration and mediation in that regard. So to that end, we are trying to build capacity in our MDAs to ensure that we support the PPP programs and projects. I would like to just come to a few conclusions because I believe we're tired and we've been sitting all day. What we want to see basically is that government actually sees the private sector as a partner in development. Secondly, the vision of our ministry as a transportation ministry is to attract private sector partners to develop our infrastructure projects. We would also like to see these programs sustained and hope that you would help us do just that. Without further ado, I'd like to say thank you to you all for your attention, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.